Okay, so let's talk about how to route Priory of the Sacred Flame for Season 3. This is a dungeon, much like Halls of Atonement, that people are struggling with. This is probably, in my opinion, after the Halls got nerfed and after Arakara got nerfed, this is by far the hardest dungeon to pug. Now, technically speaking, this dungeon is not that hard. We had it in Season 2, we know the mechanics, it's basically the same dungeon. But it's impossible to pug this dungeon, and allow me to explain why. PuGs. It's very difficult. This was the last one that I got for my resilient keys. It was so hard for me to get this because the RNG of what group I would queue into completely made or break this dungeon. As you know, and I'm sure if you're watching this video, how many times have you gone to do the very first pull in Priory and just go kerplat? You don't even make it past the first pull. Very common experience, and with the new lever system, you can't even abandon the key. So Priory is a pain point for a lot of people. I want to talk about how to route it, and this is to clarify let's talk about the different levels of keys. This route starts to get very complicated. I wanted to make this video because of all the dungeons this season. Priory has the most variability. In fact, I have timed it on 16 using this route that I'm showing you right now, but I have also done this one, and this one also works just fine. And I have also done a different one, which also works just fine. There's actually several different variations on a route that work here, but let's build one together, and I will talk about how I would do Priory of the Sacred Flame, give or take on a plus 12. Let's talk about at a plus 12 level, right? Let's call it a general safe route. Now, we have to min-max this route to be both safe but also effective on timer. This timer in this dungeon is not technically that hard. There are only 3 bosses. But almost inevitably in Priory, you will have random spot deaths. And because of that, you will tend to get to the end of this dungeon and you will probably be short on time. But let's talk about how you can actually min-max this on a 12. Now, the very first decision you make is the first pull. If this was a 10 or lower, I swear you will have more success if you actually didn't pull the mini boss in the first pull, because now there's going to be an overlap. However, I believe inherently that for timing reasons and with lust, you probably should pull the mini boss in the first pull. This is already a take. Whether or not you go right or left side, this is a pretty standard first pull. What you have to understand about this as a tank player is that you must get aggro as you walk past. This is not a pull that you can actually casually run past. If I'm on my bear, I cannot just run past all these mobs because somebody is going to YOLO. Somebody is going to zug. I promise you that it will happen. The other thing that is going to happen is your healer is going to panic and probably start healing you. And this is just a note: as a healer, do not heal the tank on this gather because you will get threat. As a DPS, just wait for your tank to get to the spot. I think at this point, everyone knows what spot that is. Even on a plus 12 level, I would have reasonable expectation that you know where you're supposed to go with this. We all know, right? I'm not here. If you don't know, I'll show you real quick. It's not that hard. Everyone knows you go to the corner. You can either tank this on the stairs right here, or you can tank it right in that corner. Either one is actually totally fine, okay? But let's go back to the routing. So when you talk about this, make sure you have aggro on the mobs as you walk past. That's like the very first note. I mean, this is going to be a little bit of an extended video, but bear with me because I want to give you all the tips I've learned how to actually get this. I swear this was so frustrating to try to pug this key and get my resilient keystones. It was so difficult just because it took me an amount of attempts that I don't want to share with you. Like, it was incredible. But a lot of it is personal responsibility in this key, because the very first pull, if you're a DPS player, aside from waiting for the tank to aggro, there is actually only one thing you need to know. In this pull, there are 2 archers, okay? these archers do an ability called Pot Shot. This is going to be a very common theme throughout the dungeon. This is physical damage. So most likely if you are a plate class, you're probably not going to take a lot of damage from this, and you'll be fine. But you know what does take a lot of damage from this? Your squishy mages, your warlocks, etc. So what you need to know is that in the first pull, there are 2 AoEs. Please, please, please understand this. There are 2 AoEs. You will not die to an AoE cast. It's not going to end you at a plus 12. It's not going to happen. You actually are going to live this without any problems. What you have to know is that the only way you die and you magically evaporate on the first pull is if an AoE goes off and a pot shot hits you at the same time. And you can track this by having unit frames that actually tell you who the pot shot is on. There is a weak aura for it, and it'll be in my Discord or linked in the video or whatever. Just get a unit frame that tells you if you have the pot shot and / or the bleed from the knight and an AoE goes off, you must press a defensive. But let's go ahead and route this, assuming that the first pull goes at least well. Assuming the first pull goes well, how do you do it next? So, the first thing that happens in the first pull is that hopefully this knight is the first target to die. This guy has a lot more health than everything else in the pack. In general, he is alive for quite a bit longer. So what you want to do, and to understand this, I'm going to make this route, but you have to understand the context here. When you're doing the first pull and you're tanking it, give or take in this corner, what you want to understand is that when this guy is at like 40%, 30%, and the rest of this pull is already dying, you can chain him into this pack right there in the corner. But don't pull both of these at the same time. Just this corner right here is fine because there's only 1 archer and 1 caster. If you pull this pack, now there are 3 casters and 2 archers. The name of the game in Priory for PuGs is pull as few casters as possible. Pull as few casters. You want as few casters and as few archers as humanly possible. Now, you do need percentage and you do need to route the dungeon. But I promise you, what you want is as many footmen and as few casters as possible. So let's assume that the first pull goes well. The knight is dying off. The archers are kind of dead. And this guy is at like 30, 40%. You drag him in here. Now, let's say that all of this dies. Okay, what's next? Here's the conversation about Priory. Do you go right or left? Big conversation. I think that right is better. I was very convinced that left was better this season. But left has 2 different overlaps, as well as the fact that these mobs are just harder. Actually, right, I think, is the answer. So, let's talk about what happens when you go right. And I'm going to give you 2 variations, because there's also a route where you go left. Whoa, buckle in, guys. This is going to be an extended video, because we have a lot to talk about here. Okay, listen. Pull 2. You go up the stairs, and you fight these. Now, there is a more efficient way to do this. And I highly recommend, if you trust your team enough, to type in party chat and say, wait. What you should do to avoid any mishaps is pull this down to this open area down here. There's a reason for this. The biggest one is that A, you need space to dodge, but it's not so much the dodging because no one's really going to be dodging at that key level. It's because somebody is probably going to butt pull this night pat that roams like right here. Somebody is going to accidentally pull this, and you don't want to do that because your key will be over very quickly. What I would recommend is you actually say as a tank player, you actually go into party chat and just go, wait here. Use the ping system, and then everyone's going to wait. Trust me, that works. Even in a 12, you can do that. Just actually open chat and just go wait here, ping here like this. It will work. Or you can even put a world marker down. I can't do it because I'm not in a group. But I would just do that and tell people to wait. Now, I would walk up here. I would tag this pack. And then I would bring it back down because as you're fighting this, the mini boss will also come into this pull. So when I make this MDT, it's going to look all over the place, but you got to understand pull 2, you want to drag this down. Now it's slightly inefficient to do so, but it's safer because it gives people all the room in the world to dodge. That's what I would do personally if I was tanking this on a 12. There's a world where if I trusted people, you can also just fight this in the corner where these footmen are. but it does bear the risk. Somebody is most likely going to dodge her circle and slash or one of these lynxes or something, and most likely they're going to dodge this way and aggro something they're not supposed to aggro, and then your key might be over. Even in a 10 or a 12, all of this together will probably wipe you. So if you want to be safe, pull it back. If you want to be aggressive, fight it here. That's fine. Okay, pull 3. So now you've fought this. Let's say you've gotten past this point. It's a very positive sign if you've already made it this far in the dungeon. I swear, Priory is randomly very difficult. Let's assume you've actually gotten past this point. Excellent. Now you fight the Pat. The Pat is next. Here's the question. If so far the key has been going pretty well, I think it is very reasonable to pull these two things together. This guy is dangerous, and this is a dangerous pack. But I do think, for timing reasons, you cannot actually pull pack by pack in a 12. As much as I want to say, oh, your timer shouldn't be a problem in Priory. Your timer shouldn't be a problem in Priory if you're playing with absolutely blaster DPS who don't belong in a plus 12. If you're playing with 3 DPS people and they already have plus 16 Resil, yeah, you can pull however you want here and you're going to time the key. But let's imagine you're not playing with Giga Blasting DPS and you're playing in an average Pug 12. You're going to have one random dude who does like 3 million less than everyone else. You can still time this key, but you have to adjust accordingly. Some of these pulls are aggressive, but I still think the idea is that you pull both of these. The thing to understand about this, there's only one kick in this whole pack. There are archers, but there's only one kick in this whole pack. As a tank player, just try to get the kick. And this is the only mob that has a kick in this whole pack here. So I would strongly recommend that you do your very best to get this. Also, side note, I just realized I'm zooming in here. Hey, the icons for these lynxes are kind of cute. And now I sort of want one, but that's unrelated, okay? All right, back to the route. Okay, you do this pull, excellent. The other thing is that this tends to line up with cooldowns, but again, in a plus 12, nobody's lining up cooldowns with anything, so don't depend on that. Next, we have this area here. This is pretty important. Do not pull these packs. They are terrible. Do not pull this light spawn. This is easy, by the way, okay? This is super easy. All you have to do is walk left. There's a lot of room here. It doesn't look like it on the route, but you don't have to pull any of this. What you do with pull 4 is you just fight this here. This is very impactful. Trust me. Trust me. Do not pull this together. You will regret it. Do not pull this all at once. It is a bad idea unless you are in a highly coordinated group, which you're not. So don't pull this together. You either get this like really low to 20%, or if I was in a plus 12, I would absolutely just fight this pack. This pack is deadly. 2 casters, an archer, and a lynx. These are all the mobs you don't want to pull in the dungeon. But you have to do it because it's kind of right here, and I wouldn't trust anybody to dodge this guy without pulling it. So let's say you do this as pull 4. In my 16, I did more than this. In your 12, don't do that. Just fight these 4 real quick, okay? So you fight these 4, then you pull the mini-boss. Now, with this route here, there are 2 mobs that are pretty easy to get. Again, no casters. No casters here, just 1. You can fight 1 caster. Pull this together. This is what I'd recommend here, okay? So you fight this priest. 1 kick. Maybe you have a DK if you're lucky and the DK grips him in. Otherwise, as a tank player, you actually go around here. You aggro this and then you aggro the mini-boss. Not the other way around, although it does work to do it either way. But either way, just basically, let's fight this together. Okay, so now we're starting to get the Priory route, right? We only need 1 more pull here, and it's going to be the other mini-boss that comes in. Cool? It's going to be the other mini-boss that comes in. So this mini-boss, you have a choice. I would, in a higher key, I would fight it with this because you can actually avoid all these lynx jumps. But in a lower key, I don't know how I feel about that. In fact, I'm pretty sure I don't want to fight any lynxes. Lynxes are a very dangerous mob when people don't dodge them. So I kind of want to skip this pack. Again, you'll see everyone play it. In fact, you'll see in higher keys, people will do stuff like this, right? Like you can do that because people know how to avoid the bleeds from the lynxes, but people don't know how to do that in a 12. So I would actually take this out, and I would definitely fight this with this Night Pack. There is a potential overlap. Sorry, pull 6. There is a potential overlap here. It's dangerous to do. The other option is literally just fighting her solo. And that is a possibility, but I don't know if that's really the right move because it's quite a time loss, okay? Now let's do this here. Let's say we go right, and this is give or take the route. I think that this is acceptable in a 12. There's a world where you might have an errant death to this because there is going to be 1 or 2 overlaps where there's going to be a shout. One of them overlaps with the AoE. If people use defensives, it's fine. People aren't really going to use defensives in a 12. I kind of think that if you are a little bit sus about your healer or your group, you could actually just let her walk here and just fight her alone and make up this percentage elsewhere. I think that's actually a possibility. Okay, let's talk about the boss. Obviously, if you go right, congratulations, you are fighting a spam casting bolt on a pug that's not going to help you kick. But here's why I think right is better. This is very good information. On a 12, unless somebody is significantly undergeared, the fireball doesn't one-tap you. On a 17, it does. But on a 12, it does not one-tap you. You actually get you take 80% of your health. It's scary, but there's no other damage happening aside from the spear, which is like 1 or 2 overlaps. There's like a few. There is no easy way to do this fight because if you go left, then there's an overlap of Holy Radiance plus spear instead of just Fireball plus spear. There are a few things you can do to mitigate this. Ultimately, there is no easy route for Priory, which is kind of why I want to make this video. There is no easy route for this dungeon. Like, it is just a hard dungeon, but let's assume that you're going to fight this together. Okay, so what you need to know is this. The only real overlap that happens is the spear cast plus fireball or the Savage Maul plus fireball on the same target. If you are crafty and you're in a pug environment, you could save your kick for that exact moment. You don't have to spam kick the bolt on a 12 because if there's no other damage happening, it doesn't end anyone. The tank damage is very light when there's only the bleed and you don't have to deal with the judgment cast as well. So you're a healer. Your job as a healer on this fight is to ping pong people's health bar. You're going to get bolted, take 80% of your health, healer heals it back up. You get bolted, healer heals it back up. Get bolted, healer heals it back up. Ideally, you use a defensive, but let's assume that doesn't happen. I actually do think that right will have more success than left, even with the caster being kind of a terror. You might have to commit a B-res, but like I said, there is no real easy way to do this. Like, it's just, you kind of have to make it work. But one thing I would do that will help you a lot, let's say you're a tank player watching this, okay? I kick Warcry, right? All right? You guys kick bolts. You as a tank player, you hold your kick for Dalcry. And don't kick fireballs. You are the only one who kicks Battlecry because you cannot let this go off. This will wipe you, probably. This is the one you cannot let go of. And the other tip about this is that you can kick this even if the shield from Savage Maul is up. You can still kick this, by the way. Very important to know that. So when that comes up, you kick and you let your team worry about the bolts. If you're a Resto Shaman listening to this, I implore you, save your range kick for when the spear or the same target is getting targeted. But that starts to get into some nuance that I don't like. But let's assume that everything goes well. It's a tough dungeon. Even with a good route, even with safe pulls, even if you split some of this and split some of this and whatever, it's just a hard dungeon. But let's talk about what you do after this. Now, you have 3 options. You have a bunch of options about how you do this area. Let's assume that you're a tank player listening to this. Are you a very good tank? Do you have a plan? Because I actually think that even in a 12, this is a doable pull. The reason is simple. There is a single kick in this pull. Actually, the real pain point of this is your tank, not your healer. Your tank has to be independent. If your healer is worried about you as a tank, do not do this pull. Because your healer is going to panic. If they are having to heal you as a tank, your team is dead. Take this out and just do it like this. But let's assume that you're like, I'm confident. I know how to gather this. I know how to walk right. I know how to not get hit in the back. I know how to actually do the tanking stuff, and I have a good rotation for this. I'm walking in as a bear. I've got whatever I need to have. Everything's going to be okay, right? Hey, Anomaly. Hi, I'm making a route on how to do Priory. It's a little YouTube video I wanted to make. I wanted to make this for every dungeon because I think it really helps people to understand the nuances of the dungeon and how to like customize it depending on whether or not you trust your team. And to be honest, one of the most useful skills for Mythic Plus, by the way, is how do I understand whether my team is good or bad? Because that will influence my routing decisions live in the dungeon. Like, while I'm tanking the dungeon, I will change my route. Like, oh, actually, we've gotten kicks. Everybody's been using defensives. I can pull a little bigger. Or it's like at this point in the dungeon, I'm like, okay, we've had 5 deaths. There have been 3 swirly deaths. These kicks went off. There's only 1 caster, etc., etc. And I'm like, great. Don't chain this then. Like, that's actually an incredible skill to have, and you should have it. Like, I wish... It's very difficult. You have to understand how to navigate that. It's not so easy to understand, but at this point in the dungeon, you have to make decisions. If I was like, yo, we are in struggle bus city, but we still got a chance of timing this, I'm only pulling this. But if I'm like, actually, we've been doing pretty decent, this should be fine, right? Because this is actually mostly tank damage. A lot of here is just tank damage. This is all tank damage. These guys are mostly tank damage. Obviously, there's the Sacred Tolls. In a 12, without using a defensive, the Sacred Toll will do at most 70% of your health. If they use a defensive, it's less. Your healer needs to be able to top your group. That isn't a guarantee. But if your healer is competent in any way, shape, or form and doesn't have to panic heal the tank, this pull is very doable. The only way you die here is if your tank obviously goes blub blub. That's a problem, all right? If your tank eats dirt, your tank eats dirt. That's a problem. But number 2 is if this one caster goes off. If the single caster gets a cast off on top of a Sacred Toll, you're in trouble. There is one caster. Again, you have to make the routing decision. If you think you can manage a single kick in this pull, do it. If not, take it out. Anyways, let's assume this goes well. Now what? Add pull. You fight this solo. Cannot express how important this is. You do not group this with anything else. You just fight this for a second. When, and only when, this caster is dead, then you can chain it in. This is full cooldowns. Your healer is panicking. Everybody has just used every cooldown in their book to do this pull, right? You're kind of going to kite this back like this. You're going to kite it back around. Wherever you end up taking this pull is absolutely fine. I don't believe you should actually, as a tank, by the way, I don't like pulling this and line of sighting it out here because you have to waste the defensive on the gather in general. I like just walking in and fighting it here and then kiting it around so you don't actually butt pull this. Okay, so 3 casters, no. 2 casters, tops. Every single pull, 2 casters, tops. There's a caster here. There's 2 casters here. This guy has he has much less health compared to everyone else. When he is gone, then you can chain this in. So I will double select this in the route, but you gotta understand, if your tank can live the Templars, there's a single paladin, that's fine. They're force desynced. You gotta make sure this caster is not here. If you do this all together, especially after your healers burned all their cooldowns here, you're in trouble. Don't do this. Same deal. Don't pull this corner until these casters are dead. You can chain the paladin, to be honest, but this is the way I would do this. Make sure that goes first, then chain it in here, and then when that's actually done, you go add pull 10. Cool? Cool. Now, you fight the boss. This one's easy, obviously. It's like cooldown recovery a little bit. You fight the boss. Boom. Boss. There's obviously a lot of tips for this boss. I kind of want to make like a separate video about like actual tips for bosses. This one is don't fall asleep. I guess the biggest thing to understand about this boss, if you don't know, is don't soak the. Okay, this is actually a big tip. No, I want to give one big tip here. This is the most important thing to understand. A lot of people don't know this because it's easy to get scared about this boss, right? Your whole priory is going well. You're like, yes, we're finally gonna time this dungeon. We made it through everything with only 17 deaths, and our timer is still good. We're finally gonna do it. All right, when you get to this boss, okay. So don't get hit by the ground effects. That's an easy one. But the second one is this. The way that the soak works is that there's plenty of time when it comes out. So when the soak comes out, your tank has time to soak, then wait for the stacks to fall off and soak again. But you have to get it in the last 5 seconds. It's not that scary. It's totally doable, even in a 12. It's very, very doable to wait and let your stacks fall off and go again. Because if you actually take 3 stacks as a tank, even in a 12, you might die. Like, that's actually very painful, this thing. So the way that it works is big soak comes out. If you have a DK or somebody that you trust to actually do the immunity strat, fantastic. But you probably don't. So the way I would do it is this. After the shield throw, you move, wait for your healer to top, then you soak. Just keep it simple. What you got to understand is that the Castigator shield on this boss hurts, does quite a bit of damage, but it will never ever one-tap you, especially at a 12. Your healer needs to have a second. When you soak the Sacrificial Pyre, it does a burst of AoE damage, and you don't want to go boom, 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 soak, because that will kill someone. The shield goes off, and then you go boom, 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 soak. Okay, you're in trouble. Your healer needs a second to actually cast a healing spell, so just kind of try to stagger the soaks a little bit, and you get a dot on you. Let's not talk about exact boss mechanics, but this is the one thing to understand about the shield. Great. Obviously, this next pull is just here. When you have casters and paladins, the cast can go off. The first casts are fine. Do not let cast go off when the Sacred Toll is happening. It's the overlap that kills you, not the actual cast itself. Great. Now you're almost at the end of the dungeon. You're here. You can taste that sweet, sweet IO. How do you pull this area? Okay. As a tank, you can't go too safe, but you also don't want to go too risky. This is the area of Pot of Greed. Do not overpull. Light spawns are very scary, especially because what healers struggle with in lower keys is single target burst healing, because people don't use defensives when they should. In higher keys, you don't actually deal with light spawns because your DK knows to press AMS before the thing even comes out, so they don't take the ability. Your mage or your hunter know to feign death or invis. Like, you have ways of getting rid of this ability. Unless you get terrible RNG, you very rarely have to even heal the light spawn in higher keys. In lower keys, you're healing literally every single one, okay? And people aren't going to help you with defensives, so just be aware of this. First pull, 2 packs around the corner. Line of sight, and again, if you're ever going to line of sight something, just go. Or, right? And make sure that's a C. But just basically type something to your group, ping. Bind this to your keyboard, ping. Tell people to wait a second. You drag this around the corner, you get aggro, easy. This pack, single kick on this mage. Do not let the mage cast on top of Divine Tolls. It is hurtful, and it hurts. Only other thing to know about this last area is that if a mob has risen in front of its nameplate, it will explode when it dies. You can technically CC this. Wouldn't expect it. Just know there's going to be a little extra burst of damage when these mobs die. Okay. Continuing on. How do you do this next? Now it gets interesting. You technically have a choice. Where is this Pat? If this roaming Pat is coming back and it's right in this area, you pull this next. Okay? If it's all the way over here or all the way over here, you don't pull this next. Okay? Let's take a look here. Let's see what our percentage looks like, okay? I like doing this corner. If not Pat, I like doing this corner and then Pat, not together, okay? This is basically an easier pull. This is a slightly harder pull, but the hardest pull is this one right here. Sir Braunpike. This one's the hardest one, so you want cooldowns here. You kind of order this area depending, but we're not going to worry about that right now. First pull, line of sight right there. Second pull, this is probably all cooldowns. If the Pat's in a good spot, pull the Pat. When you pull the Pat, tag it, and then let it come back. When you tag it, the first 2 fireballs will be on the tank, so they won't kill anyone. Tag it, Walk back and let it walk to you. The first two casters will go cast, and then they're going to stutter step in, and then you have chance to kick them and actually bring them into the pack. So let this come back over into this corner so you don't butt pull anything, okay? Again, the ordering of these two depends on where the pad is, okay? If you have full cooldowns, you fight the mini-boss. If you do not have full cooldowns, do not fight the mini-boss next and grab this 3-pack. Again, if full cooldowns, fight this. If not full cooldowns, fight this. But either way, you're going to end up doing both of these pulls. Now, with the mini-boss, when the mini-boss is at 50%, not right away. Please don't do this. I've seen tanks do this in lower keys, and it freaks me out as a healer when I'm leveling my ults. I see this all the time. They don't understand how these guys work. When the mini-boss is at 50%, you chain this corner in. Not right away. If you see this in a route, don't do this right away. Please, only afterwards do you do this. Okay? Only after the mini-boss is already at 50%, because look at the title of these guys. There are 3 risen footmen. When these guys die, they explode for AoE damage. If that happens at the end of the mini-boss, when your healer's already used all their cooldowns, you're probably dead. And there's also an extra caster in here, so there's already 2 casters here, which is kind of scary. I would lust this, and I would own this pack real fast. Okay. If we take a look at our route, we're already at a little over percentage, just barely. Let's take a look and just see, because we've changed this up slightly. I wonder if these 2 mobs... Yeah, you can take out these 2 mobs. I was wondering about that. I was going to say I'm slightly over percentage because we're ending up playing this knight, which I don't normally do, but I did like this cook for a plus 12. So what I would do is I would take these 2 mobs out. I would just fight this mini-boss. All good. That works for me. You can't really skip anything else here unless you were to actually walk past here. I wouldn't try to walk past this. They're kind of in the corner, but once again, I just start thinking, hey, in a plus 12, do I trust people not to pull it? The position of this is potentially, I think that you could get away with not pulling this because it would be easier to fight this together. Now, I think that the safer option is here, by the way. Okay? The safer option is here. This is what I would do. I would go this way. Cool. Okay, so if you're going to do it like this is what I would do. This last pack, you can fight it with boss. I would only pull this into boss, especially if your timer is good and you're like, cool, we have this. Don't fight this until this caster is dead. And I would even borderline just consider playing it. I would just play this safe. When these guys die, they explode. Sometimes that overlaps on the boss. Boom, dead. So if your timer is like 6+ minutes, if your timer is 5 minutes, sub 5 minutes, you can pull this into boss. If your timer is 6+ minutes, bro, just fight this pack real quick and then fight boss. You're absolutely fine. You will time the key. You can't lose to the last boss with... The last boss is pretty quick. 4.5 minutes? 4 minutes is fine. So if you have 5 minutes on your timer and you're like, oh, we might be stressing a little bit, maybe pull this in. If you have 6 minutes on your timer plus, just fight this pack here. Don't fight. You will actually sometimes wreck your key by pulling this too aggressively. Okay, that give or take is the right side of Priory. Now, granted, all the notes about how you do this after the first boss still apply, but there is a technical another aspect of this. If you're like, look, woo, I hear what you're saying. In a 12, the fireball shouldn't one-tap. But you know what? No one is kicking at all. Like, I told them I'll kick the boss, but, like, we are actually spam dying to fireballs. It's impossible. We can't go right side. I've got to try a left side route. Okay. That's fair. I really think that Priory is a super RNG key, no matter how much you understand this, no matter how much you route this, no matter how good you play as a tank. The truth of the matter is, if people don't take some personal responsibility in this key, if people don't use defensives at all, and if they don't kick at all, and if they're not helping you, you might not win. Like, it doesn't matter how clean your route is. It doesn't matter how much you understand. This is just a personal responsibility key. But you could, and the thing is, it doesn't have less personal responsibility to go the other way. Because now what happens if you go left side, the problem is you deal with this AoE, Holy Radiance, on top of a spear. And technically, DPS are supposed to press defensive there. It's the only part of the fight they have to, but if they don't, they can get one tapped. Like, you can actually die to the Holy Radiance plus the Earth-Shattering Spear. Why did they make this boss have Earth-Shattering Spear? I have no idea. It was unnecessary, uncalled for, and to be honest, quite frankly, rude. But yet they made this first boss quite a bit harder. They were trying to nerf it, and they just made it's all a mess now because this guy has an AoE that's unavoidable and uninterruptible. So it's annoying. Left side route, if you did want to do it, let me just show you what that looks like real quick. Okay, so if you were going to do the left side, the first pull is identical. What you do is I like grabbing these footmen as a tank. This is an extra little note, by the way. I would grab these footmen, I would bring them down here, and this is a gigantic chain pull. You do not pull all of this at once. Remember the rule with casters? You get these footmen with this right pack, you get this caster down, you pull this, you get these casters down, you pull this. It's a chain pull with two as she comes in. Normally, this first captain, like I said, is at 40% or something, so you pull the first captain into this corner. When she's coming in, I grab these footmen. I grab this here. This is the route, by the way, that I did on my 18 last season. When I did Priory last season, this is the route I did. I also did it at the start of this season, and like I said, it is successful. But you got to understand if you look at this routing, these are all chain pulls. So you don't fight all of this at once. This is a chain pull. This is one pull. This is a give or take. You can try to fight this if you're confident. I would maybe swap this around. There's casters in here. This is a chain pull. You fight the mini boss here with these three, and you fight the mini boss here with these three. The mini boss at 50%, you chain in here. You can technically go left side. It's not the end of the world. And the advantage of this route, you can also take some of this out if you want. The advantage of this route is you don't need this 3-pack at the end, so it cleans up this last area. It's technically up to you how you want to choose to do this key. You might just have to, it's a little RNG, you might just have to do a few priories. Unlike other keys where I'm like, guys, if you pull it like this, you're definitely going to have it. Oh, man, it just hurts. It's just a hard key. So, once again, I reiterate. People told me that they really liked it when I did this for Halls of Atonement. People kept asking me, do you go right or left in Priory? How do you manage it? What do you do? Both of these, I can put both of these in the Discord. I hope that you like this video. I can try to do this for the rest of the dungeons. To be honest, this is the most complicated route, I think, of the entire season. The other dungeons, will be a lot easier. Maybe Dawnbreaker has some nuance and stuff like that, but, like, you know, so this is the higher key one. This is the one I was making just now. Right. I think that Priory is a big routing dungeon. If you make poor decisions, if you try to chain, like you try to do a giga pull here with 3 casters and you die, that's a routing decision. If you try to overpull certain things or underpull certain things, it's a tough dungeon. If you like this video, please let me know in the comments. I don't know if I should do this for all the other dungeons. I'm happy to. I hope this information helps, and I just hope that this helps ease some of the toxicity in keys, because, like, the most annoying thing is when you're trying to do a key, you're just trying to have fun. WoW it's a fun game. Like, you're just trying to play World of Warcraft, and then all of a sudden something goes bad in your key and somebody starts yelling, and then you find things out about your family members that you didn't know before, and you're like, oh man, I'm just trying to get my plus 12, man. I'm just trying to get my 3k IO. I'm just trying to get my resilient keys. Like, I'm not, you know, like, we missed the kick. Like, it happens. It's okay. I hope that these videos, if anything, I hope they help reduce the toxicity by giving you a better success rate of this dungeon. That's what I kind of hope to do with these videos, these routing videos, and talk about some of the nuances. In general, the only rule I would say with Priory is the timer is pretty reasonable. Don't be afraid to pull safer. As an ending note for this dungeon, don't be afraid to be like, yeah, I don't know about this comp. I don't know about this team. Just pull it safer. Just literally split this. Like, it's fine. You can make up percentage quite a bit of ways, and just don't overpull. Is a general rule for Priory that will serve you well. So that's the Priory video. I'll put this in the Discord. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Voila. We did it.